everyone, and welcome to Bordertown Strange with Pam and Jess, and our esteemed guest tonight, Mark.
Steamed or just steamed? It's hot out there, so I may just be steamed.
I think you're right. Today's ridiculous.
I feel like a lobster.
I bet.
And I stayed out of the sun.
Oh, man. I think my thing said it was like feeling like it's 108 out today.
Yeah, it's not a roast turkey you smell. It was just me.
Oh, no. Well, tonight we're going to bring everyone along with us for the ride on part 2 of Time Anomalies, Missing Time, Game Time, Time Slips, and all the fun that goes along with that. So, Jess, would you like to start us out with a little housekeeping?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna start talking about Paracon a little bit on all the shows. It's that time, people. The countdown has begun.
It has.
And it is getting nutty, especially here at Bordertown. We are all going just a little on the nutty side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than normal.
More than normal. Yeah, we always get a little woo at this time. So we got Paracon coming up September 28th. It's a Saturday. It's one day from 9 until 7:30. We have 5 presentations coming from UFOologists, from ghost hunters, from cryptid, guys and everything. We've got 3 big panels coming up, a UFO panel, a cryptid Bigfoot panel, and a ghost panel. And we have nearly 40 speakers coming in to give these presentations and to panel. And what's exciting about our Paracon is it's absolutely free to the public. I believe we're the only free Paracon in the continental US. It costs you absolutely nothing to come and sit down and watch. We provide you with a schedule at the beginning of the day so you can pick and choose what you want to come and see. And another great thing about our Paracon is that we pride ourselves on the fact that all of our speakers and panelists are completely accessible by the public. You can feel free to walk up to any one of them and start chatting and maybe share your story or ask them some questions, even off panel. She said she might even do a little bit of cold readings towards the end, so that'll be fun.
It'd be really cool.
Yeah. We also have Lindsay Miles, our tarot reader. They both have been doing this for 2 years now, providing these services.
Yeah.
We are also giving away door prizes again. If you've come before, you've seen what the door prizes are like. Full ghost hunting, UFO, and Bigfoot hunting bags. Lots of prizes from the vendors and signed books from our authors. I think I did a count. I think we have 6 authors coming this year.
That's terrific.
Nice.
So, yeah, and all their books will be available, and you can talk to the author and get your book signed. And there's so much more to that. And we'll be talking a lot about that in the coming 2 months. Getting everybody excited and prepped for that. So if you want more information about the Paracon, go to our webpage, www.bordertownparanormal.com. I almost missed it. And hit the link to the Paracon, or you can find it all on our Facebook page and also our Instagram, I believe, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. So yeah, check that out there, and we'll be posting it like crazy. Keep your eye out. And we just got a couple of new panelists in just this week. So it just keeps changing and we keep adding. So it should be super fun. All right. So moving on from Paracon, just the normal little housekeeping. If you're watching right now on Facebook or YouTube, just take a second and give us that thumbs up or that like. Share if you're on Facebook, hit the bell, and subscribe. The more people we have, the better content that we can bring you. And also, we encourage everybody to stay up on the chats and chit chat with us during the show. Give us your opinions, give us your stories, and stay until the very end and play a couple rounds of the notebook game.
That's my favorite.
For sure. That is fun.
Yeah, I didn't even have time to count out my notebooks today. I just grabbed a handful. I think I have about 7 sitting here I need to pick through. So,
all right.
That's awesome.
Bonus notebooks.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with bonus notebooks ever.
Bonus books.
For sure.
All right. So, do you guys have any other housekeeping?
I think you
now?
covered it. I mean, I'm excited. We're coming up. How many weeks out are we? It's not very many because
7.
what is today? August 14th?
Yeah,
And
it's like 6 or
September
7.
28th is the
Yeah.
Paracon. So we're about a month and a half out.
Yeah, it's getting crazy close. Crazy close.
It is.
All right. So moving on. Let's do our what the weird word of the week. And I believe Pam
Absolutely.
chose the word this week.
I did. And this is one, if you've spent any time in the paranormal community, I'm sure you've heard this word. You may not know exactly what it means, but synchronicity is the word that we chose for tonight, or I chose for tonight. And what synchronicity is it is a concept that describes when two seemingly unrelated events happen at the same time and seem to have a meaningful connection, even though there's no evidence that one caused the other. So when we talk about synchronicities, it may be, I immediately think of Hellier because they're big on synchronicities, and the blue balloons was a big synchronicity for them. Seeing that went along with some of the things that happened in Hellier. What's interesting about this word to me is I thought it was a relatively recent term until I started looking into it, not just within this week, but a couple of years ago. And this term was actually originally introduced by psychologist Carl Jung, who believed that synchronicity was a close connection between the unconscious's archetypal vision and physical events, and that this connection was a meaningful coincidence, not just a coincidence by chance. So there are people that feel that, you know, if there's a synchronicity, it can kind of tell you that you're on your right path, you're where you're supposed to be in your life. And others believe that synchronicity connects everything in the universe through unseen mystical ties. But Jung actually used this concept in an argument as for the existence of the paranormal, which, yay, Carl Jung for doing that. But yeah. So synchronicity, if you hear that word again, now you will have a little bit of background and know just a little bit more about it.
Yes.
Woo-hoo.
Speaking of Hellier, would you like to tell everybody, Pam, about your little moment in the sun this week?
Oh my gosh. Hang on, before we do that, look who is in the chat. It's Big Willie.
Hey, Will.
Good to see you.
Miss that guy.
Yeah, stranger, where you been?
Too fun. Yeah, Jess was talking about, so Greg and Dana Newkirk, there are some of the guys that are behind the Hellier phenomenon and behind the show that you see on YouTube, and I think it's on Amazon as well. They are also from Haunted Objects podcast fame, and I am a member of their Patreon, and if you're a member, they do an in-between podcast that is just for members. And their last podcast that they had done that was public for Haunted Objects was on pyramid power. And I'm a big, huge pyramid power freak. And I was back when I was really young. And to the point to when I was in 7th grade, I had actually done my science fair project on it. And so when they talk about pyramid power, I was like, I'm going to send this to them because they're doing a mailbag thing in between. And they're like, send us your stories that might go along with this so we can add more to it. And so I sent them my story. And basically what I did was I had a pyramid that I built out of construction paper. What's it called? The other paper. You know, the thick paper.
Paperboard?
Cardstock. Thank you. And so, okay, so I built it out of cardstock, and I had one edge of it where you could flip it open so I could observe what I put inside of it. And I went with like hunks of hamburger, which is totally gross. But I put like a $50 size hunk in the pyramid, and then I took a control piece and I put it just in a cardboard box. And so I would, for 6 weeks, I would open this flap and, you know, observe it and write down my observations. And it was really interesting because the one that was in the pyramid never stunk, and it kept kind of it didn't look fresh, but it wasn't rotting either. And it got like this glazy shellac look to it. And I thought that was pretty cool. I was getting excited. 5 weeks in, my cat eats the piece of hamburger that's in the pyramid. And we were like, I almost cried. I was like, there's no way I have time to redo this experiment, you know. But then it dawned on me, hey, my cat ate this, which means that it didn't rot and it didn't make the cat sick, you know. So I was able to draw my conclusions that, yeah, you know, there is something to this because the cat was fine. It ate it. Obviously, it wasn't rotten meat. And the other piece, immediately within a few days, it stunk to high heaven and it was disgusting. So, you know, I did my findings on this and went ahead and submitted it and took fourth place in the science fair. So I thought that was pretty cool. But when I sent this to them, I didn't know if they would talk about it or not. They did. They actually spent a little bit of time talking about it. Jess has heard it so far. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
But
is.
yeah,
It's
I was
really
all
good.
fangirling. It was fun. So that's
And
my little.
I have to agree with them. I don't know why you picked like meat. Why you didn't like pick like two pieces of bread to see if one would, you know, like mold or
Well, because, you know, that was at the time. And remember, this is like the early 80s. So at the time,
yeah.
it was a big, you know, was this built as a mausoleum? You know, why was it
Mhm.
built there? And would it have preserved bodies? That was the whole big thing at
Oh,
the time.
okay.
So I
Yeah,
wanted
I
to use
gotcha.
meat, you know, as a replacement for, you know, people,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. So that's why I went with meat.
Soy
And their big
McGreen.
question was, where did you put it? And I was like, it was in my garage. My mom would have killed me if
Yeah.
I would have tried to do that in the house. So yeah, that was the fun part. It was all good.
Big Willie's all about the mustache there.
Woohoo!
And
There's
did you
Yeah.
see
my
this?
mustache. That is awesome.
That
Yay. Thank you,
thank
Rick.
you, Rick. We didn't even ask the public to do that, but hey, if you all want to like send goodies for us to raffle off to help raise money to have the Paracon kept free, you totally can. We
That is
appreciate
awesome.
We
everything.
also accept donations.
For
We
sure.
do. We have donation buckets out everywhere because literally this entire Paracon comes out of our pockets.
Yeah, we're not doing this to make money. We're
No.
doing this to get people from all the paranormal fields together to share ideas and to share with the public.
Ashley's like, "Where's the beef?"
Well, it didn't kill my cat, so yay for that at least. More and my cat, I have to tell him about this too when I do see because I'll see him in Wichita. The day after the Paracon, they will actually be in Wichita. The Newkirks will. So Jennifer and I are leaving out early the next day to go to this. So we're going to be dead by Monday. Um, but yeah, we'll get to see him then. But my cat's name was Morris Eugene. Sadly, he's not obviously not with us anymore because that was a long time ago. But yeah,
Where did the Eugene come from?
that's my
I
brother's middle
understand
name.
Morris.
Name the cat
Okay.
after your brother. That's great.
I did. Yeah. You know, Morris of Morris the cat fame. And then, yeah, we threw a Eugene in there. He was cool. He was a black cat and he had thumbs. He was super cute.
Wow.
Yeah. He was pretty awesome. Pretty good cat.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so we have a star in our midst tonight. Yeah. All right, so let's move on from our what the weird word of the week. Thank you for synchronicity. That is a word we use
A
all the
lot.
time. So
We
there
do.
you go. If you didn't happen to quite know what that meant,
Yeah,
and
you do.
we use it all the time. I always talk about it. I see 1111 everywhere when I'm on the track of something. Like when I'm heavily researching something, I always know when I'm heading the right direction because suddenly 1111 is everywhere or some form of a 1111 or
Yep.
several ones. I don't know. And Pam's a 444.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Nice. Will had never heard of it. So yay.
Awesome.
Woohoo.
All right. So if you caught us 2 weeks ago in our last show, we've been talking about missing time, time slips, time anomalies. Big
Will has
Willie's
it
is
too.
333.
Nice.
Wow. So we discussed some of our own personal things that had been happening. We talked about And if you've ever listened to our show before on the Fringe, you've probably heard some of these. Our trip out to the Sandhills that garnered Pam and I extra time. Pam's original disappearing, reappearing house. We talked about some other places that disappear, reappear. And we talked about the haunted nursing home that seemed to be in its own little time bubble. And unfortunately, we wished we'd had Mark for that one, but unfortunately he wasn't feeling well. But we have him here for this one, which is going to be good because he was a big player in the one that we're going to really discuss tonight, among other things. It isn't the only one we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about Sallie House in Atchison, Kansas.
Amazing place.
We went in hesitantly, not knowing what to expect because we'd heard so many things. We've heard it was the most outstanding haunted house you've ever been in. We'd heard it was the scariest house people had ever been in. And we'd also heard that it was the lamest, most boring house anyone had ever been in.
Which is honestly like pretty much any place. You're almost always going to have an off night now and then, or the place is going to have an off night. There's only been one place that I have been to personally that has not, that I am aware of, and that's McIntyre Villa. And Ashley's in the chat. She can tell us that too, because I've never had an off night there. Like I've been there so many times. The 2 times I've been there.
Rick said he thought he was having time slips today, but it was just a messed up clock. That happens to us all.
Hey, but it was right twice.
That's true.
Too funny.
All right. So who wants to like start off Sallie House stuff?
Jimmy, go ahead and pull up the photos and stuff to go with it.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, we'll add it in here. So there's the date that we went. It was actually July 12th, 2019. So it's been a few years now.
Yeah.
Since we have been there.
The neat thing about the thing that struck me about Sallie House was how close it was to the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Interesting. So a little backstory on the Sallie House for anybody who really doesn't know it. I'm sure most people kind of know the basics of it. Well, it's supposedly haunted by a little girl named Sallie. That's to be determined. Frankly, that's just hearsay.
That was based upon a psychic medium that came through, and he felt like there was a little girl named Sallie there. And when they went out to the cemetery, he happened upon a grave of a Sallie and felt that that was a connection there. And it ends up that the Sallie's grave that he was at was an older lady. And there is no, as far as I can recall, there's no, and Ashley, you're in the chat too. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's no connection actually made to a child named Sallie that goes with the house. But there was a doctor that lived there. He did treat patients at the home. We do know that for sure.
So. Yeah. So this originally started out with the Pickman family. It was a married couple that lived there. They had a very young child at the time, and the husband had more trouble than anybody else. He would get burnt. He would get pinch marks. He would get cuts on him. Whatever this entity was, it seemed to attack him. We're not going to go into the whole story tonight because that's kind of its own show on its own. That family no longer lives there. They still live in Atchison, actually not very far away, about a mile, I think it is, away from the house. Many, many crazy stories have come and gone out of that house, but that's not what we're going to focus on tonight. Tonight, we're going to focus on our investigation there because it's where we've had one of the craziest time slips ever.
Ashley confirmed that is correct. It's a legend for Sallie, the child.
Yeah, it's absolutely a legend.
One thing I'd like to start out with is there was lots of fuel in that house for weird stuff to happen because the EMF was stupid high through most of the house. I'm honestly surprised the place hasn't burnt down because most of the wiring is just 12-2 cable stapled behind the baseboards.
That's scary.
If you look at the wiring and you know anything about electricity, you're going to be afraid to sleep there because it's just bad. So, but
Yeah.
there was
So
lots of EMF
Bring
Yeah.
up.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So I grabbed all my original notes. This
Nice.
is them from that day. So we can literally sit here and go down by the minute. So first of all, we were all super excited to be going. This was like a bucket list item for us. And the fact that we got to stay the entire night and the house was all to us. We didn't have to have anybody there to show us through or to keep an eye on us. You just walk in and you
We
have the
just
whole
moved
house
in.
to yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah. It was a fantastic experience, and it's open for anybody to use. If you're interested, get up on to, I believe it's Atchison's city page.
It is, yeah. Their chamber.
And yeah, and you can go through them because the city of Atchison runs it, and you can book yourself a night, or if you don't think you want to try to do like a whole night with them, they also do self-guided tours and guided tours, so you can go see it no matter what.
And if you are just in Atchison, you can drive by the house. I will
Mhm.
warn you, it's a very inconspicuous home and very easy to miss when you're just driving down
Yeah.
the street. It sets back. It's under a tree. You know, it's almost hidden. There's a lot of large homes right there on that street, and it's one of the smaller ones. And it's really not small. It's just smaller than the ones around it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll miss it really quick if you don't pay attention. I believe Enzo said that Enzo and Pam went up to McIntyre Villa, which isn't all that far away from Sallie House, and he said he drove past there and he missed it. He he caught a glimpse of it right as he was like already past it,
Yeah,
and was like, "Oh man!" So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's very unassuming.
it
it is.
is.
And it's a little ways off the road. It's a little bit pushed back than some of the other
Back.
houses. So
It
with
is.
big trees in the front. So it's really easy to kind of miss it.
Well, that's because the front is the back.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Years ago, the river, when it flooded really bad, it flooded Atchison, and it took out the streets that were below Second Street, and where the house used to be, that used to be the front, and all that street was taken away. So instead of trying to rebuild all that up at the time, they just flipped everybody, made their back their front, and now their forward facing is considered off of Second Street. But
Mhm.
we didn't know that when we were there. We found that out after
Yeah.
we got home. And but we have pictures that we'll show here in a few that show the back of the house and front of the house, different things.
Yeah,
Pretty cool place though.
It is really
it
nice.
is. So we started off our evening like usual.
Here, let me
Set
pull my-
up recorders and took baseline readings. We found some hot spots in the house, and of course, Mark shimmied his way down into the basement and found all sorts of bad electrical. So we knew about that. We actually left for a little while, went and grabbed dinner. There's an awesome restaurant there. You all should try if you end up
Yes,
going.
I'm going back next time we go.
Polluties.
Chicken fried steak was to die for.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
called
very good.
Pollutions. We actually ate there this
Polluties?
last time we were there. Yeah.
Yeah, and supposedly the restaurant is also haunted.
Yeah.
Although I don't recall us seeing or hearing anything.
We
so-
didn't.
Except
Well,
for
I-
our own stomachs rumbling.
I certainly
Because it was
killed my
really good
dinner.
food.
It was good food. So we got back, and I will say, this house was one of the more active houses we've been in, but it started out in the most unassuming way. It was a lot of activity on ghost boxes, very little activity with EVP work, very little activity with the rods. It's also one of the first, I think it is the first place that we use the Estes method.
Yes,
Yes.
it was actually.
It was.
Yeah,
See,
and I have all of
good.
that here too. Very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. In fact, I was kind of refreshing myself before the show started, looking through my notes, and one of the first ghost box sessions that we did was literally right after we came back from dinner, and it's pretty disturbing. and I'll have to like bleep some of my own words, but it literally just says get out, static, get out, static, get the F out, get out, static, get out. And that one sent the K2 meters off when it did it. It was so mad at the
Yeah.
time.
We're oblivious the whole time.
Yeah. And the most hilarious thing, and I have to, this was me being unfamiliar. I tend not to do a lot of research on these bigger places before we go investigating because I want to kind of go in with a blank slate. I don't want to kind of have some preconceived notions, although I already had a few because this house was so famous. If you have any interest in ghosts whatsoever, you know the Sallie House.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
but I didn't do a lot of research beforehand. I did it afterwards. And I did another ghost box session upstairs in Sally's room with Mike Coy, one of our other investigators. And I thought it was ridiculous because the ghost box kept saying Mike and Michael, Mike, Michael, Mike, Michael.
Yeah.
And I just thought that they didn't want me there and they just wanted to talk to Mike. Well, come to find out later on that the gentleman who built the house's name was Michael. So I think it was trying to tell me something else. I kept asking who was there and it kept saying Michael. And I was oblivious to it all.
Is it good to go into a place and not be aware? Yeah, it is, because you don't have any preconceived notions of what you may experience. But in a case like this, and what we've learned is at least one person probably needs to be kind of up to speed on the names and things like that, just so we know for the future if something like that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
So learn from us.
So before we go into any kind of detail on some of the pre-stuff, I'm going to hop right in to the weird time anomaly, and then we'll backtrack from it so we can kind of give everybody like some explanation, or what we think is an explanation for some of this. So we went through the evening, all sorts of interesting stuff happening. We tried the Estes method for the first time, and we have amazing results. And I almost have to keep Pam from rolling out of her chair. I will tell you about that in a little bit. Crazy stuff. The evening is going along fairly decently. It's got some dead spots in it. And at one point, Mike was tired because he had done nothing but fought his video camera all night long. He could not get the video to stay running. We should have so much live footage of this house, and we have nothing because Sallie House will not let you record in it, or at least it wouldn't let us record inside of it. In fact, at one point he got so mad he yanked it down and threw it back into his bag, I believe, and basically told it to F off. So it's getting a little late, and we've all been just kind of all over the house, and we decided to recoup, to just take a break, reload batteries, and make a game plan for the rest of the night because we were just kind of all over. And we were all sitting down in the living room. And Mark was sitting in an easy chair in front of one window. Mike was sitting in a chair in front of the other front window. And Pam and I were sitting on the couch, which ran up against the west wall. The east wall.
South wall. South wall.
The south wall.
South wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're sitting there, and it's actually very, very quiet at the time. We're all kind of done chatting at each other, and we were just kind of sitting in the quiet, kind of going through notes and doing all this other stuff. And all of a sudden, the whole house shook with this bang. It made the windows rattle. And the house shook, and I thought it sounded like a sonic boom, like a plane had gone over or something. And everybody leaped up, and Mike leaped up and turned and went right to the front door because he was literally right beside it, flung the door open and ran out and was like, holy crap, guys, you've got to come see this. And Mark is having a mini heart attack because apparently a raccoon the size of Texas had somehow hit the window so hard that it almost broke it, and it knocked itself out. It was laying unconscious on the concrete patio floor. Now, if you look at the first picture we have up here, this is the front of the Sallie house, and Mark was sitting right inside of that first window to your right.
Yes.
And the raccoon had hit that window. Now, I don't know if you can tell or not. It's a little kind of hard to tell, but that little riser that fits around the outside of the patio, it's kind of like a little fence for the patio. It's a good 5 to 6 feet away from that window.
Mhm.
And
That's
for a
knee high.
raccoon that fat to have hit the window that hard that it shuttered the whole house and nearly broke the window, I would have to think that that raccoon was thrown into it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
We have some theories we'll have to talk about here in a little
I
bit.
don't know. Or
Yeah.
kicked it.
Yeah, or sucked into, or yeah.
Yeah. We think maybe sucked into.
Yeah.
And everybody at home right now is going, what the hell are you guys talking about? But we will explain. I promise you. You have to know
Flying
the
raccoons.
circumstances first before we backtrack.
Beware.
So now this is where things start getting insane. So we're all outside except for, I believe Mark stayed pretty much inside, if I
I looked out
remember.
the window.
Oh, he looked out the window. Mike is still by the front door, and he goes, holy shit, something just went up the stairs. Now, inside the Sallie house behind Mark, there is the front door, or Mike there is the front door in the picture. Straight after that door, when you open the door, it's the staircase up,
That's right inside the door.
Mhm.
yeah, to the bedrooms. And he said he watched from that doorway some white mist go right up the staircase. I turned and looked and saw just the very end of it top the staircase and turn. And of course, we run. Him and I both ran up the stairs, and we got up to the stairs. The mist was gone. But interestingly enough, one of the toys in Sallie's room was playing. And we actually had to take the entire thing apart to get the batteries out of it because we couldn't find a switch to turn it off. And oddly enough, another kicker is it was a toy we didn't recognize, which is saying something because earlier that day, Mark and I spent some time and completely pulled every toy off of the floor in that room and put them away in the closet
Turned
because we
them
wanted a
off
fresh
and put
space.
them in the closet because many of them had batteries.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had literally, right before we'd taken that break, gone upstairs and put them all back out because we hadn't actually been getting a lot of activity in Sallie's room. And we decided we were going to go ahead and get all the toys put back out. So later on, when it was getting super late, we weren't having to worry about going and doing that because we always like to leave a place how we found
Yeah,
it.
we took a picture of it and tried to put everything back right where we moved it from.
We do have pictures
Yes.
of that too somewhere in here.
Yeah. So Mike and I are trying desperately to get this toy to shut off. We finally get it to shut off. Yeah, that's the bathroom upstairs and the kitchen downstairs.
Yeah, let me flip through and see if I can find the right one. Here we go.
Yeah. So actually you can see here. So like the picture on the right is with toys out in it. This is how we came and found it. And the second one is me and Mark getting everything put away. We were emptying the room. We left the ball in there because it's known to move things about.
Mhm.
And we actually, what you can't see is underneath that ball is a piece of tape on the floor. So we would know if it had moved.
And I'm setting up a camera, and I had a camera on that ball all night.
Yeah. So this is actually a perfect picture to show if you go back, Pam, really quick. That toy that we found that was playing music was on that windowsill that you see there, right beside that doll that's sitting up in the middle.
The monkey.
There was a new toy we had not seen playing music. And like I said, we ended up busting the back of it off. We got the battery compartment broke off and got the battery out of it to get to stop playing. So the minute it stopped playing, I was like, I got it. Mike went, there's the mist again. And we turned and looked, and down the hallway is the middle bedroom. And we followed the mist into there. And I followed it over to the farthest corner where there was a dresser at. And that was when the weirdest thing happened. It felt like a suction from like the ceiling to the floor. And I just happened to accidentally be in the middle of it. And I had told them it felt like somebody was pressing down on my shoulders, like they were trying to shove me down through the floor. And Mike said that it was the freakiest thing he'd ever seen, because he said my face changed, and it wasn't quite me at the time, which scares the bejesus.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
It was a bad place to be. It only lasted for a couple of seconds, that feeling, and then it was gone. And I headed downstairs and almost vomited. I was so sick for the rest of that night. I was on that couch for the rest of the evening, completely useless to everyone else. And then I believe nothing else happened that night. It went completely quiet.
It did.
Yep.
Yeah. It was after, it was like it did this crescendo and then it just released. And once it did that,
Yeah.
you know,
Once
it
it
was
was
like-
all done, it was done.
and that's, and let me show that other picture, because right before the raccoon occurred, the raccoon incident,
By the way, no toys were harmed in the filming of this. The batteries were returned to the doll. The battery compartment was stuffed back in the Velcro bag, but all the toys survived.
yay. So before the incident occurred with the raccoon, and it wasn't very long before that, Mike he was standing really close to the front door, and he happened to look out, and there's this set of wrought iron patio furniture out there, and he was like, "What is this bird doing?" And if you look at this picture, you'll see a little brown bird sitting on the chair, and it just sat there the entire time. We all came out, we stood around it, we looked at it, we took a picture of it, and it never moved. It never acknowledged that we were there at all, which we thought was really odd.
Really weird, because there was light on there.
It wasn't asleep. It didn't have its eyes closed, and it didn't have, sometimes they'll tuck their head into their wing just a little bit.
No, it was just
like
there.
staring straight forward. It was the weirdest thing.
It was very odd.
Yep. So here's where I'm gonna start doing time logs, because this is where things take the turn, right here at the bird. And that's why I waited for the bird until after we were done, because this kind of kicks it off.
It does.
So I have this marked down here. I'm reading straight from my notes. Yay, notes! Yay, notebooks. At 12:04, Pam took a pic of the sleeping bird on the patio chair. 12:05, we take the break and move toys back out into the nursery. That's what we were doing at that time. And then my notes skip to 12:55. No, 12:05, by the way, is when the toys were all put back, not when we started. I'm just making that clear. 12:05, everything's back in place. And then it skips to 12:55 when we decide to take the break. Now, in our minds, this all happened at the same time. The bird's happening. Mark and I are finishing up putting away taking back out all the toys. We come downstairs. We take the break. But in my notes, we're missing 50 minutes of time. So from the time we take the picture of the bird, 12:04, and finish all that up, suddenly it's 12:55, and that's when the bang happens against the side of the house. And all of that insanity goes down all at once. Now, very interestingly, earlier I had mentioned that Pam and I had started trying to work with the Estes method for the first time. For those of you at home who don't know what that is, the Estes method was invented in Estes Park, as in the Stanley Hotel. the gentleman who ran the ghost tours there kind of invented this. And what they did was, instead of openly listening to a ghost box in a room, they put sound canceling headphones attached to it on a person, so only they could hear it. And they would simply repeat whatever words they heard come out, not being able to hear whatever questions were being asked. So you were getting almost the purest form.
You can't
of a
even hear
ghost
the
box
question
answer.
being asked. So when you are doing the Estes method, you just repeat what you hear. You don't even know if there's a question being asked at that moment.
Yeah, and our version had Pam downstairs in the living room while we were upstairs in another room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were up in one of the bedrooms.
Yeah.
So Mark and Mike were upstairs asking questions. Jess was down by me recording what I was saying, and then I had the blindfold on, and I had the static in my ears, so I couldn't hear or see anything. It like takes all your senses away, so you're really focused on what words are being brought to you. And just for integrity's sake, it's Connor Randall and Carl Pfeiffer are the two gentlemen that invented the Estes method.
Yes. And it's been ever so handy for us. But like I said, this was our very first experience with it. And what we got, at first, it didn't really make much sense to us. And it's really because you're coming at from a point of, you think they're going to be answering your questions in some fashion, which is totally not what happened. And later on, and I'll let Pam actually talk about this, but it felt more as if she was hearing random conversations between people rather than any answer for any question that I might be asking. Did you want to talk a little bit about what that was like?
Absolutely. So, this was the first time that I had done it. I've done it many times since then, but, the first time I was just sitting on the sofa, and no, I was in a chair, wasn't I? And if you've been with me when I've done this before, and I know other people seem to do the same thing, you almost get into a trance-like state at some point. And what I felt was, when I was hearing this, I got to a point to where I felt like I was almost peering through the top and looking into what I could perceive was like this bricked in, just a cave-like thing. And it made me think of like a subway, like an old-fashioned subway, is kind of what it seemed like. But it was like I was looking down and peering into this and hearing these conversations. I wasn't, I wasn't aware of what the questions were at all that were being asked. So I was just repeating what I was hearing. But it was interesting because it was more along the lines of people talking about us in the house. What are they doing? Why are they here? What are they doing? I can't remember the exact words. Jess would have them down, but it was more, they were talking about us. They were talking about other things. They weren't answering questions that were being asked at all. It was fascinating. But Jess, she said earlier that she was worried I was going to fall out of the chair a couple of times because I got to where I was leaning, and I told her afterwards it's because I was trying to, lean down so I could hear better. And yeah, it's because I had that feeling that I was leaning into this place quite a way. So it was really interesting, really fascinating.
Yeah. Another interesting point, after she had told me, she actually said a train station. She said, I feel like I'm leaning over like a train station. Yep. And when she said that, these conversations she was kind of hearing happen changed. And they were saying things like, did she hear us? Is she here?
That's right.
And then she started hearing dripping sounds, like she was in a cavern, like something was dripping down into a big space. And I think they almost like created this for her so she could hear all these conversations. And that's why she was kind of leaning forward. And like at one point I did have to snag her up because she was literally getting ready to like plow face first in that horrible green carpet that was in there.
That's some rough carpet.
Hey, I like that green carpet. Reminded me of
but
my
like
honeymoon.
I was kind of looking through our notes here to kind of pull some of these up. I was kind of refreshing myself. So we heard a conversation. Somebody was talking about having been on a ship and it felt like 100 years. Um, there was the snaps. She had one where it sounded like somebody was snapping their fingers over and over. And that was a weird conversation she heard too. She heard the water dripping, and she heard someone say, yeah, definitely it's around 15 or so. And somebody else yelled, not 15, 50. Just as if she was just overhearing random conversations, but it was always with different people. And within the same session, it would change 2 or 3 different times. There would be a new group, as if there literally was groups of people passing underneath of her, and she was getting to hear bits and pieces of their conversations. Right? So when we go back and we think about what happened at the house, starting off with the bird and the missing time, and then all of a sudden the whole house shakes, and that raccoon hit the window, and then all of a sudden that thing went straight up the stairs. It set the toys off in Sally's room. It bum rushed into the middle bedroom, and then that suction thing happened that I was caught in the middle of, and then the house went completely quiet. And it is just kind of our working theory right now that Sallie House is some type of a vortex or open and closing portal. We think it opens up sometimes and it gets really nutty, and then it closes down. And I believe that's why if you go on to like chat boards and stuff and see where other investigators talk about being at the Sallie House, you very rarely find 2 investigations the same.
Yeah,
They always encounter
same information now.
They don't. They all encounter different things, different entities, or the house is completely dead and nothing happens, or they experience no hauntings, but like their stuff gets messed up or their equipment isn't working.
Something
And I just, I think it also has something to do with the river, the fact that the river is so freaking close. I wonder if it charges it.
I wondered about the ley lines there. I wondered if there's an intersection of ley lines.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
It's like a train station with lines going every which way.
Mm-hmm. So, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, now I was just going to say, so nothing else happened. It went dead quiet. The meters went down. It got very quiet, and it got very comfortable in the house, which was good for me because I was just not feeling well.
We needed them.
I think we stayed up for a little bit longer checking meters and stuff, and nothing really happened. So we all just kind of crashed a little bit and rested because we had to get up and leave at like 6 a.m. We had to be out of there at 6. The more interesting point to all of this, besides the missing time and the raccoon and the frozen bird and the weird vortex thing and the toy going off, is the fact that that next day, as we were driving home, we didn't talk really about the Sallie House.
We didn't.
It was me and Mark and Pam, because Mike had come up separately because he had been visiting family. And we had just been on an experience of our lives, and we didn't talk about it. And it wasn't because we were scared. It was simply because we had just kind of forgotten about it.
We were so...
he was all right. I don't know if I'll go back again.
I know we have...
I think I actually said that.
Yeah. Like, we'll flip it through these real quick. This is the bathroom, and there's the kitchen.
That red door goes down to was that the bathroom or was that the basement?
That's the bathroom. I think the basement door is right
on the other side. Okay.
Yeah, it's right there together.
Did you get it? I sent you a picture of the basement with the blacked out floor where the pentagram was supposedly supposed to be.
Yeah. Now look at us. We look so young. Hasn't been that long, has it?
Yeah.
It's been a little bit.
Feels like it sometimes.
Right. This is what is currently the back of the house, on the right-hand side, which if you look at it, I mean, you can tell it obviously probably was the front of the house at some point. And it makes perfect sense once we got home to realize that, because it opens right into the kitchen area. But yeah.
Did you see what Chris said when Mark got home? I asked if y'all got a lot of activity, and he shrugged and said, "Not really."
Yeah,
It's
we were
absolutely
all just
true.
like,
Like we
Eh.
were like kind of unimpressed. We were like, okay, whatever. So,
we
and
were.
you all listening are probably like, what the hell are you guys talking about? You just gave us all this
There it is.
information. Yeah, so this spot down in the basement, there is a pentagram and some weird names underneath this black spot. After the Pickmans left, there was a lady who moved in for a short while because this was a rental, and it's actually still owned, or it was still owned by the same gentleman until he gifted it to the city not too long ago to use as, to garner money for the city. He had to kick her out because she had trashed the house and was doing ceremonies and stuff down in the basement. And he was like,
By the way, that is the whole basement.
Yeah.
There's
yeah,
like
it's
two,
not very big.
feet to the left of this picture, and you're to the other wall. It's
Yeah.
that's
Very
it.
tiny.
That's the bottom step. That's the whole basement.
And now, I mean, this was in 2019 when we went, but the last that I knew, they don't allow people to go in the basement anymore.
Yeah, but that's actually pretty smart. It was pretty moldy when we were there.
It was very musty, and like I
Lots
said,
of wiring.
the wiring was old.
Yeah.
I have the feeling that the place would calm down a lot if they had an electrician and rewired it.
Probably, but then
Very
they wouldn't get
possible.
as many people in.
That's
Very,
true.
very possible.
They'd have to put
Yeah.
some EMF pumps out.
Completely fascinating place. But Jess is so right. I mean, we got home, and it's a good 3.5-hour drive from where we live to the Sallie House. We got home. Obviously, we're all just exhausted. And, but normally we'd be excited about this. The next day, once we're up and going again, we would start going through our evidence and things like that. And we didn't. And
We were
it
more
was
interested in singing 80s songs. Yeah.
badly and loudly.
It's not that I can't sing, it's that I really shouldn't.
Right. Exact same.
Yeah. So 2 weeks pass. It was a little over 2 weeks
It
past.
was like closer to 3.
And I've been passing by this notebook for like 2.5 weeks. It's been sitting on my dining room table collecting dust. And I walked past it one day and I was like, you know what? I need to pick that up. And I need to double check those notes because that's actually what I do when I get home from an investigation. But I didn't do it this time. And I was like, I should go ahead and check those and get them kind of typed into my logs and make sure everything's dated and correct, blah, blah, blah. So I pulled them up and I started running through them and, like checking off stuff. And yeah, the time works here, the time works here, the times work here. And I start looking at what happened that night, what I had written down. And I was like, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, wow, that was really cool. That was amazing. I don't remember. Wait a minute. Yeah, that did happen. And I started realizing that we'd had quite an excellent night. I mean, comparatively, even when it was quieter at the beginning, it was still more exciting than like 80% of the investigations at regular homes that we go to.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
So I'm going through and I'm getting excited. I'm like, Estes method sessions are really interesting. Oh, look, you can see a conversation here. And I'm looking through. And then I hit the bird and the raccoon. And I realize, holy crap, we are missing a humongous chunk of time in here. And then it all just kind of comes back to me like, oh crap, that toy was playing upstairs. And then I felt sick at the end because it felt like I was getting pushed through the floor. Mm-hmm. And I called up Pam first and I was like, hey, I'm pretty sure we have missing time at the Sallie House. And she was like, what?
Pretty much and exactly what I said.
Yeah. So I brought my notebook over to her house and we sat there and went through everything together. And she did the same thing that I did, was like, oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. And then we had a meeting and I was telling Mark and Mike about it. And it all started just kind of coming back to us, and we're trying to work on this missing time. And that is when all of the theories start popping up. Is it a vortex? Did we see something finish out and close? Did we see a surge of energy happen right before it closed out? We ended up calling it a dissociation theory. And this is something that is actually known now to us. We didn't know about it before with the Sallie House, is that people who have extreme things happen to them there usually go through this 2 to 3 week period afterwards where they're just completely complacent with what happened.
That's a very good word.
Yeah, I think whatever.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah. Well, it was the Sallie House. And then this. So we're trying to figure out why we felt this way. And that's when we start finding other references to people going through the same situation where they had something incredible happen but didn't really recall it until a few weeks out. And this is where synchronicities started really kicking in for us, for our group. This is the turning point for the synchronicities. It's when it gets really crazy. One of those synchronicities was because of Sallie House. That's how we found the podcast Astonishing Legends.
Yeah.
Because we went hunting for other podcasts that talked about other people who had investigated the Sallie House. And it just so happens that the day that we went to go investigate the Sallie House was exactly 1 year, 1 week after the Astonishing Legends crew had done it. And they had incredible EVP happen inside the house. One that was so incredible that it scared one of the guys so badly that they refuse to ever walk back in that house.
And that was in 2018. And every podcast that they record, he still brings it up at least once every podcast. Yeah. And he was a staunch poo-pooer to everything. He was a very staunch skeptic. And after
it's one of the scariest EVPs we've ever heard. If you've ever gotten to go to one of our Bordertown presents, we actually had a Sallie House night where we played that one. We obviously can't play it here tonight because of copyright rules. But if you want to hear it, it's on the Sallie House episode 2 for Astonishing Legends. Their entire backlog is free. So just go back to 2018 to the Sallie House series, and they did like 4 shows on it. Excellent. If you want to deep dive on Sallie House, hit that podcast.
Yeah, it was a good podcast.
It's episode 123, Sallie House for Astonishing Legends.
So another little side tick to this. I say it's one of the scariest ones we've ever heard, but Ashley, who is in the chats right now, she got an EVP very, very similar, like crazily close to this other EVP. So if you are, ever get to go on an investigation with Ashley with Pin Paranormal, or you get to see one of their little shows, or actually she's going to be at the Paracon this year. You'll have to ask her about that one. Maybe she'll have it and play.
We'll have to have him on sometime.
Crazy. Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. Because that was from the Garnett House too, wasn't it? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Where it's just from. Yeah, we'll have to.
It's the closest thing I've ever heard to that other EVP.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It's like a madman screaming the worst scream, just losing his mind with tons of like static over the top of it, which makes it even scarier sounding. And somehow it does it. But
was that your cat?
Yes.
Okay.
Bronwyn's in here.
It's like I think I heard a cat, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, she's rooting around. Anywho, so there's our incredible time slip. Now, we have a running theory about what the dissociation aspect is to it. We obviously have a huge chunk of missing time. Not one of us can remember what happened in that time period. To all of us, it literally went from cleaning out the toy or putting up the toys. Well, me and Mark, it went from putting up the toys, walking downstairs and sitting down and it happening. And for Pam and Mark, I believe they were already downstairs. Pam had stayed downstairs that whole time. And Mike was down there messing with his video equipment. So what happened in between the bird and the raccoon?
And if you have listened to our shows in the past, or if you know Jess is very, very good at keeping times. So, she always has her notebook.
Obsessive, actually.
Yeah,
I
a
am.
bit obsessive in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah.
She writes down every time anything occurs. And so we always have a running log, minute to minute, of what happens during the investigation. So for that amount of time to be not accounted for is an anomaly on its own, because that's not normal at all. That's not how things go when we're on an investigation at all.
Yeah.
But the fun part is we have caught time anomalies like this from her keeping notes in that way, because there has been a few times we wouldn't have caught it, or something small happens and you kind of blow it off until later, when you go back and realize, holy cow, something really truly did occur that we should not have let just slide by. And how many things in your life do you let slide by? That's a little odd.
Who knows?
I don't know what happened there. Yeah.
So on the flip side of that, we just had missing time, like some kind of a time anomaly happened. The other theory is are we disassociating from that time period, not because it's missing from us, but because something happened that was so insane or so illogical or so like overpowering for our small brains to handle? Are we not remembering that 50-minute period because of something that happened to us or in front of us that we don't have the capabilities to comprehend in any fashion? Much like a therapeutic disassociation, like, when people don't remember car accidents because it was so horrific.
Right.
They just lose that part because your brain's protecting you. We wonder, are our brains protecting us from something? And that is almost scarier than just some missing time.
Yeah, what
No
happened
kidding.
in that 50 minutes?
No kidding.
Yeah. It's it's very scary, actually, when you think about it too hard. So there's even more on top of the story. It continues. So weeks out after even me finding, starting to look at the notes, and we're realizing all this and we're coming to terms with it. And if you've listened to the show before, you've heard me talk about it. I have these weird, sometimes precognitive dreams, or like dreams about something that I'm going to deal with in the future. And like I said, it's never anything helpful. It's never like a natural catastrophe that I can help stop, or I can
Lottery
stop
numbers.
someone's death, or,
Right,
it's never anything important. And I don't realize it until it's almost already passed. So it's not like I can be like waiting for it to happen. But I started having a recurring dream, which isn't anything new to these guys. They've heard me say it before. I have a new recurring dream. But in this one, I was actually in the bathroom, and Pam had posted a picture of it earlier, on the second story. And in my dream, I did the same thing every flipping time. And I did it so often that I had it kind of memorized. I would walk into that bathroom and I would do a full 360, and I would look at the tub that was there, and the wall, and the toilet, the sink. And I can even tell you now, like, how much buildup was around the sink, the fact that it was dripping a little bit, what color the tiles were. Yeah. In that bathroom right there. And I would do this really slow 360 turn, and then turn back and look straight back out the door to the bathroom. Now, when you look out the door of that bathroom, you
Straight
see
down the
the
stairs.
wall to the front of the house, just above the staircase and just above the end of the hall there, which takes a left-hand turn into the master bedroom. It's just a piece of wall is all it is. And in my dream, the whole house starts to shake violently. And I watch that wall rip apart like a mouth, and it opens up like this, and I see skylight come in, and right when it gets to the point where it's starting to kind of trickle stuff down on me is when I would wake up. Over and over and over I would have this dream, and it was so frustrating. It got to the point where I wasn't scared anymore when it happened. I would just let it play out because I couldn't change it. Sometimes you can change your dreams. You can have, those type of dreams where you can kind of just change it. I couldn't change it no matter what I did. So I would just let it play out, and it would get worse every time it would open further. It was louder. It sounded like screeching metal and breaking wood. And I had this thing for like nearly a year. I would have this dream nearly nightly. And I kept telling them about it. And I was like, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means. And everybody had kind of a idea of, well, maybe it's the house eating you, or, you're too attached to the house. Quit thinking about the house so much. And then one day, and it was really weird, I was in the shower and I was actually listening to Pam on a different podcast. And she was talking about something. And all of a sudden she said, well, it's all about the water. And she wasn't talking about Sallie House. She just said, it's all about the water. And I had one of those moments, like the light bulb moment. And I wasn't even thinking about Sallie House at the time. I wasn't thinking about the dream. I was literally just having a morning shower. And she said, it's all about the water. And that whole dream came rushing to me. And I was just like, that's what it is. It's the damn river. I'm seeing the house being taken down by the river later. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm pretty dang sure that at some point that river's going to flood out again, and it's going to take that last little bit of land that's behind the house down into the river. And I think I was viewing it with my back to the
river,
back part of the house.
That window there.
And I was watching the house crack and fall into
the... it's about...
Yeah.
60 feet from the back door to the edge of the property, and when you get there, you look down to the river. What is it, like a 50-foot drop?
Yeah, it's like a cliff.
That's where the road used to be, and it just goes straight down.
Yeah.
So if the river ever comes out like it did that time, it probably will take the house.
It could, yeah, because it's not going to have all that in its way to start with.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I'm pretty darn sure that this is correct, that I'm right, was not only did I have that weird epiphany, where I finally felt light as air, like I have the answer. I have never had that dream since. I've never had it again.
You know the answer. Yeah. It was telling you a message, and you got the answer.
Yeah. So we'll know. So, like, in the future, if we're all still alive when it happens, I'll be right. I can't stop it from happening. You can't stop a river from moving.
The bathroom looks the same in your dream as it does now, so I can't see it being too far in the future.
Mm-mm.
I wish we had... There's Ken. Hi, Ken.
Hey, Ken.
So I propose at some point that we go back to the Sallie House with some good video filmography and talk about what's happened before and stuff before we do our investigation, and do another investigation.
Yeah. And again, there's the back of the house, which used to be the front.
That little window at the top, that's that bathroom window.
Yeah.
Where in her dream, she had her back to it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. One of the craziest. Yeah. But there is our last big time slip that we know of.
Yeah.
That we know of. So Lord knows how many times it's happened and we didn't.
That was either too small, or we weren't taking notes at the time because we weren't on an investigation or what have you.
Well, now that we have Mark here, I know we talked about the nursing home last time. Are we good? Mm-hmm. Are we good on Sallie House?
Oh, yeah. I'm good with
that. Yeah.
Okay. Now that we have Mark here, we talked a lot about walking into that nursing home, you and I, and you were pushing me in a wheelchair at the time with your equipment and my hoodie. Actually, it might be the hoodie I have on right now. I don't know.
It very well might be. It looks very similar.
It does. It was a gray hoodie. I know that for sure. But yeah, and the amount of time that we were in there as opposed to what was happening outside was just So different.
My internal clock said we spent 5 minutes in the dining room.
Hmm.
And then we went down the first hall, and we were coming back down the first hall when they came in and said we'd been in there for well
There it
over an
is.
hour.
Let me pull that up really quick. Yeah, because
We were parked at that table.
we were, yeah. And then when we started down that first hall, you can still see the light down there. And I know we're rehashing some of this, but I really wanted Mark's viewpoint on this too, because he was the one that was there with me at the time. But yeah, it was bright sunlight out when we were down there. Just the
And
oddest thing.
then we turned around and it was dark.
Hmm.
But it's dark, and I know it's not. And it's like, wait, what?
Yeah, that last picture that I took of Mark right here, you can see, and that's why I left the timestamps on him. It's 6:10 p.m. And you can see the light coming from behind him out through the window. There was no electric to this place. It was completely cut off at the source. It wasn't even anything
Yeah.
coming to the building.
And that's the only hall we went down.
Yeah, we didn't make it down any other hallways. And you
Mhm.
can see that it's not like room after room after room. There's some pretty good
It's
space
fairly
between
short,
the
yeah.
floors. Yeah. It's not that big of a place, but that
Yeah,
was
for those of you listening who weren't here 2 weeks ago for our first one, where we were talking about a nursing home that we had to that we investigated. Pam and Mark went in early to do baseline readings, and Mike and I stayed outside to load batteries because there was no electricity in this place. And what should have taken them about 15 minutes started taking right about an hour when it started getting dark, and we were getting upset because we thought maybe something had happened because we couldn't reach them on their phones.
Yeah.
They weren't answering, and they weren't going to voicemail. They were just kind of either ringing or not doing much of anything at all. And when we walked in, we spotted them, and I was upset. I was like, "Where are you guys okay? Where have you been? What are you doing?" And they were just as confused as heck. And that's when the time shifted for them. It never changed for Mike and I, but it changed for them. They had thought they were only in there for about 15 minutes when all of a
yeah.
sudden it was no longer light outside. It was pitch black, and we were, Mike and I were
Well,
concerned,
see,
or Mark and I were concerned. So
that room is about halfway. We went down to the end of the hall and then started back going through the rooms.
Yep.
And so that room was about 2 from the end.
Hmm.
So we had gone all the way down the hall and we're starting back. And there was only about 6 more rooms to go through.
Hmm.
And where did the time go? I have no clue. That's
It
the first
was,
time I've seen the timestamp.
yeah,
So, and it was like 7 o'clock
yeah,
when we caught
yeah.
up to time. Yeah.
It was because it was. I mean, this was in November, so it gets dark earlier, and it was getting dark, and you can tell by the timestamps. 6:05, we were in the dining room, and by 6:10, we were already almost completely through that first hallway, which is normal. We should, and we were moving slow. Regardless, we weren't like speeding through or anything. But there's only what 6:05 to 6:10. That's 5 minutes. That's not a huge amount of time to have spent anywhere. And it was maybe 5 minutes after I took that picture of Mark, if that Jess is hollering at us, when we're like, because the way it
Yeah, it
was
was
set
right
up, it's
after
like a
that.
central nurse's place, and then like 3 spokes came off of it that went hallways for rooms. And then to the north side of that is where the dining room was and everything. But yeah, and for her to come in and be like, what are you guys, are you guys okay? What is going on? And we were like, what do you mean? And she's like, it's getting dark. And we're both like, no, it's not. It's light out. And we turned around,
And it
and
was
oh,
full on
damn,
night.
yeah, it was dark. And we were looking at each other going, what the heck just happened? What happened? Because we were completely confused because it was had just been that bright out.
yeah,
Just craziness.
yeah.
The
If
sun
you're
set.
interested, oh, so go ahead, Mark.
The sun set at 6:22 on that day, according to the interweb.
So there's no, yeah, we should not have, it was full on dark if it was close to 7 then. There's no way it should have, yeah, no way.
We
No
would
way it
have
could have
definitely noticed.
happened. For sure.
hmm Yeah,
That's
so like I
not-
was saying, if you guys are really interested, go back to the previous episode. We give it like full out step by step, and you can hear it all kind of how it went down. We'll hear
Yeah.
about we talked about the air fresheners that were
Oh my
squirting and
God, they
driving
were
Mark
driving me
insane.
nuts.
We talked about you getting sick in the one room. Although, if you wanted to, we of course couldn't tell it from your perspective. If you want to talk about that room and what kind of happened to you in it.
I took
Oh, the
one step
huff.
in, and it's like my stomach just. Have you ever fallen really fast or been up into an airplane that
Yeah.
goes down fast? I had that feeling in my stomach, and my head started to throb. And it was like something hit me in the face, is kind of how it felt. I took one step back and it was gone. I was fine. And then when I tried to step back in, same thing. I could not go in that room. Still have not been more than one step in that room.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
crazy. Ken said
Right.
time slips are weird. I've heard many of yours, and I've had a few of my own. Crazy. Yeah, they are.
And I'm kind of
Yeah.
known on the team for not being affected by the environment. So,
We
and
call Mark our
wasn't
rock.
that room right there by our mysterious air vent where the air conditioner was working, even
Mhm.
though there was no power?
It was
It was like 3
actually,
feet away.
Out of the
yeah.
one vent. Just
Yeah,
one
one
vent.
vent.
There's the picture.
That's it right there.
Yeah, that's
Only
right
that one
outside
vent.
that's right outside that room.
Yes.
Yep.
And again, look at the timestamp. This is after they've caught up to us, and it says it's
Mhm.
7:18 p.m. When if you look at just right prior to that, 6:10, and there's full sun behind Mark,
Mhm.
and it's right next to that room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
thrilled when I figured out that there were actual. I don't know why I didn't think about it before, but there were timestamps on these pictures. I got super excited.
Yeah, it's in the metadata.
Yeah, didn't
Mhm.
even occur to me to even look there until I just happened to run across it. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah. So we can't stress it enough. If you're going to go on any kind of an investigation, ghost or not, anything, take notes like crazy. Write those timestamps down.
for
Even
sure."
if it's for something silly. If somebody leaves to go to the bathroom, write down the time, right where they, say which one it was. Every little thing, write it down because you will be amazed. We've been amazed
Mhm,
by what
absolutely.
I could have just taken these notes like crazy, and if I had never put a timestamp down, we would still never know
Right.
about most of this.
Yeah,
Uh,
especially like at Sallie House, we would have no clue that we missed that time because we
Yeah.
didn't feel it. Nothing seemed different.
And if you're
Mhm.
not a note taker, use an audio recorder,
Mhm.
use a video recorder. Every single one that you can buy today, if you set the time on it, you can retrieve the timestamp so you can find stuff like that.
Mhm.
So,
Look at those times. Even on those pictures, I mean, look at the pictures we had.
and we didn't know for years that we had times.
No,
So,
Yeah.
but that's really on us. That's not paranormal.
no, that's totally on us.
Yeah. Anywho, so let's move on out of our personal stories and back into some other missing time, added time stories or whatever. Did you guys bring any extra? I have lots, but
I did not. Work has been extremely crazy, so my
okay.
intentions of doing research have been absorbed by brain deadedness.
Well,
Brain
108
deadness.
degrees in the shade
Yeah.
will do that to a person. Actually, let me take that back. I think it was 96, but the feel was 108, which
Oh,
it's 108.
my overalls when I got home, I probably could have wrung them out and got stuff
I'm
out of
sure.
it. It was
Yeah.
terrible.
Dang.
So
Ken said other weird issues: not being able to cross your threshold into a hall or a room like a force field blocks you, seeing into the past, which looks so real. Good thing I did not proceed into the area. Yeah, I've heard that story. You'll have to come on and tell us about that sometime, Ken. 'Cause that is pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, all right. So since you guys don't have a whole lot, or do you, Pam? I didn't. Did you have any
I
to
don't.
do?
I really, was looking forward to talking a lot about Sallie House, and we're hitting close to 8:21 already. So
Well, do we want to have a
We
part
are.
3?
I still have enough for another show, but that's up to you guys.
Well,
Like I went into 3 big, huge places that have high occurrences of missing time, like consolidated areas. And then I have a whole bunch of little stories. So if you
we
want to do a
totally
third
should.
one, we
'Cause
can.
This is such a fascinating
It is.
topic.
Like I have a personal story and it's not missing time or added time. It's literally like a glitch in time. Like I replayed an entire section of Drive over again and
I
fast
remember
forward.
that story.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
So
weird.
like I have that weird one. So we could totally do a third one. So
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a fascinating subject, and I am so sorry I missed it last time. I was another
You
one
had
of those
good reason.
110-degree days, and I just felt like crap.
Hmm. Yeah, you had good
And
reason.
I had a migraine. It was terrible.
You look much better than
Yeah.
you did the other night, so we're really happy.
I feel much better than I did the other night. I have been abstaining from caffeine,
Good.
at least during the heat, because apparently I may have had a TIA that night.
Hmm.
Um,
We ratted you
and
out to your wife.
yes, I ended up getting sent home from work because I was unsteady on my feet the next day.
Mhm.
And they were afraid that I was going to fall off a ladder and hurt myself.
Oh man.
And really, I can see their point. I felt like they were making a bunch of fuss about nothing, but now
Probably now that you feel better, you kind of have a better
I'm going to
understanding.
have to rethink some life choices, probably.
Yeah. Dang it.
It happens to all of us. I am closer to 60 now than I am to 50, so
Yeah.
I might have to, make some effort to, be healthy.
Getting old sucks, doesn't
Healthy adjacent.
it? You can do it. We all need to do it. So we can do it with you. Your wife,
All right.
Chris, she said he was big mad they made a big deal. I bet.
Aw.
I hate being fussed over. I do.
Well, it all comes from a place of love.
I know. So,
All right, so we still have a little bit of time. I'm going to go ahead and start in on some of the like the first place that we're going to discuss.
Okay.
And then we can move into notebook games if you want.
That
Is that
sounds
all right?
good. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to start out with this. Well, it's not the small place. So it's the one that I don't have tons of stories on just because there's so many stories. I just picked a few to tell. So we're going to discuss Michigan's Upper Peninsula.
ooh.
Where's Willie? Did Willie leave? Is he still
Where's
here?
Big Willie? Are you on there,
I
Willie?
don't- I don't know if Will's still with us. This is like Will's stomping grounds. So
It is.
if I get anything wrong, let me know. So this area, it kind of reminds me of the Jersey Devil area, the Pine Barrens. It's a very thick wooded area. Not a ton of people live in that area, but it's very popular for like hiking trails and stuff to go up hiking in it or camping. But a lot of people go missing. It's one of the missing 411 areas. Just anybody who knows what missing 411 is. But it also has super high occurrences of missing time, so much so that people kind of know that go out there camping. They know there's an opportunity for something weird to happen. So what I did was I wrote down 3 stories, I believe. Yeah. That I thought were very interesting, and they're first-hand stories rather than like the big ones that you would pull down off the internet, the big well-known ones. I pulled down personal stories because I think it's a little bit more accessible to the everyday people. Like,
Right.
this could so happen to me. This is something that I would do. I'd walk in there to go camp, and this might happen. So,
Yeah.
The first story I pulled, and this is told, like first story here. So, It says, a buddy of mine got lost while we were hiking in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Eventually, he did show back up. He said he got lost, but found his way back by hearing our voices in the distance. He thought the whole ordeal was like 15 minutes or so. He was actually shocked to learn that he had been gone for 2 weeks. And everyone and the police were about ready to give up the search. He thought he was gone for 15 minutes and he was missing for 2 weeks.
You know what I'm
this-
going to say that sounds like, right?
What?
Sounds like a Faye situation.
Yeah. It's missing 411 deep through. Only
Absolutely.
he got lucky and came back out alive. A lot of the
course, I
missing
think-
411 do not.
I think the missing 411 is majority Faye anyway, so.
Bigfoot, Fae, alien, isn't it all the same? It's all connected.
It is.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is. Do you want me to pull this up, Mark?
Yeah, I've got a map of the Upper Peninsula.
Okay. Yeah, you can
So-
keep that up there. So I got 2 more stories. So this one says, I live in the UP, the Upper Peninsula, and I can attest to similar things happening while I've hiked in the woods up here. I once went for a bike ride, thought I was gone for 45 minutes, when in fact I was gone for 4 hours. The woods up here are terrifying because of all these
Not in
sorts
this
of
area.
things that go on. Yeah, could you imagine going out for a bike ride, thinking you were gone for less than an hour and then showing back up 4 hours later?
Right?
Oh, that is scary. I mean, yeah.
And there's no reason to not have the correct time nowadays. We have clocks on our phones, on our smartwatches. We always have those on. So there's no way that time should be messed up for us.
And besides that, how do you mistake an hour for 4 hours? I mean,
Yeah.
at some point you're going to be like, I've been out here a little bit more than an hour, especially if you're riding a bike. That's some pretty good exercise.
Yeah. So the third story I have is a hunting one. So a gentleman went out to check new hunting spots and decided to follow the edge of the river as he went. Normal thing for hunters and hikers to do, follow that river. He follows the river closely for about 20 minutes when things started to get weird. So we've got some Oz factor creeping in here. It starts to feel like it's taking too long to get to the first clearing he was aiming for. He checked his phone for the time. It said 4:12 p.m. But he didn't have a signal, so he couldn't check his location. He puts his phone back in his pocket, looks up, and suddenly he's not by the river anymore. He's now standing in a place he's never been, with no trespassing signs and no river in sight. Completely unnerved and confused, he checks the time again and it still says 4:12 p.m. He used the sun to head back fast where he knows the river had to be, treks his way back, finds the river, walks back to his truck, and heads home. He finds the mysterious spot on Google Maps and realizes it's over a quarter of a mile away from the spot at the river that he was at. He remembered later how eerily quiet it was when it all happened. Oz effect.
That's wild.
Yep.
So he literally checked his watch or checked his phone for the time. And when he looked up, he was a quarter of a mile away. And it was still 4:12.
And we do
Yeah.
hear stories like that, where they
Even an Olympic runner is not going to make that kind of time.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. So those are the 3 ones I have from there. So now one of these days we're absolutely going to have to do a Michigan one.
Yeah.
With Willie, because
Yep.
that's his stomping grounds.
Mhm.
Michigan is the weird state. So we've all got missing 411, missing ships and planes over the Great Lakes. We've got Stephen Kubacki, the dude who mysteriously walked out onto the frozen lake and his footprint stopped and he went missing. And they found him 18 months later, 3 states away
Yes.
near his aunt's house.
Yes. No clue what
Yeah.
happened to him. Yeah, he had. Yeah.
Wearing not his own clothes.
Right.
Yeah. And he still to this day does not know what happened in those 18 months.
Mm-mm.
I
Like
do.
his footprints went out onto the lake and just stopped at some point,
Yeah.
as
He
if
got
he'd
a
been like
saved.
lifted
I'm
up.
telling you. He went and saved some world from the Demon King. You know, just like the anime.
Ken says, fortunately, the time wasn't 420. The story would have been really questionable. I agree.
Very true.
Yeah. He would have had the horrible munchies, though.
That's true.
Yeah, so that last story, it kind of reminds me of my personal story. I'll just go ahead and tell it because it's short. So, and if you know me, you've probably heard this story before, but I'm gonna tell it again. I was on my way to work one morning. I used to work early Sunday mornings, and my drive was from here to Independence, Kansas, up north of here. It's about a 25-minute drive, somewhere running there. I enjoyed working on Sunday mornings because the drive up to Independence was beautiful. There was no one else on the road with me. Everybody was either sleeping in or getting ready for church. Um, and I would get to see the sun come up while I was driving. And it was just kind of peaceful. It was a quiet time for me. And I left out this particular Sunday morning. Everything was quiet. And just know, I mean, I grew up here in this area. I could drive that road asleep. I know that road so well.
I have driven that road asleep.
Right? So I'm driving along and I'm coming up to the point just after we have a little town turnoff called Havana. And you get past that, and there's some big curvy spots in the road, which is nice because it breaks up that long,
Yeah.
that long drive. And just as I was coming out of the last turn, the last curve, and anybody who's from around here will know exactly what I'm talking about, all of a sudden, things went weird on me. And I'm going to call it the Oz effect. Now, things didn't go dead quiet for me because I was listening to a radio station. And I will say that the music I was listening to never changed through all of this. It didn't speed up or slow down or switch. Yeah. So I'm traveling along and then I get this really weird sensation. Like something's not right around me. You kind of get the goosebumps. You're starting to look around because you're like, what's changing? What's happening? And all of a sudden, I'm back to a good spot before I would have reached that little town turnoff to Havana. And now this was like kind of winter time. So everything had been kind of brown and the trees didn't have any leaves. Everything was super lush and green and the trees were full and it was like a vivid green, like an overly done green. Like somebody had messed with the settings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was oversaturated. And it's shocking. And I'm looking around really quick, like what, because first of all, I'm back to where I was before. And everything is super bright and in like Technicolor. It was like Dorothy stepping into Oz. And I'm still driving and I'm realizing things are not in pace. It's very rural out that way and there's a few houses but they're very far apart. And those properties like crazy. Where there's signs at, where this cattle panel is sitting at, where this tin building goes. And everything was spaced wrong. Like houses would be too close or the next building would be way too far away from the previous house. Like nothing was set up where it was supposed to be. It was all like scattered wrong. And I'm driving through this feeling completely out of place and in Technicolor. And I'm like, what's happening? This is not right. That doesn't go there. And I'm hitting the curves and then everything kind of speeds up just a little bit. And before I know it, I make that last curve where I originally popped back at, and everything straightened out super fast. Everything went back to browns and grays, and the road straightened out after the curve, and everything was fine. And the radio is still playing the same song. It never stopped its normal play. And I look at the time, and I'm right on time for where I should be at that point in the road. And I'm so flabbergasted. I actually pulled over on the side of the road because I was scared I was going to drive into the ditch because I was shaking.
Yeah.
And I actually called Pam
Yeah.
because I needed to mark the time and tell her what had just happened. And after I called her and let her know, I actually recorded myself on my phone telling the story over again, just in case. Like, I didn't believe myself later. I had this feeling like I was going to talk myself out of it.
Yeah. And yeah. I wonder how many people
Yeah.
do when stuff like that
I've
happens.
done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have too. I've had weird
Yeah.
things happen.
Yeah. But oddly enough, like, I never lost any time and I never gained any time. I got to work at the same time that I should have without the added going back and retaking that section of the road again in that
Just
really
like
weird trippy.
that section of road you're talking about takes approximately 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So
You know what it makes
Strangest.
me think of, and I've never thought about this before. I don't know what made me think of it tonight, but it's almost like, remember when you used to have to defrag your computer, and it would move things,
yeah,
where they're supposed
Yeah.
to be, and yeah, that's kind of what it's making me think of a little bit. But it's almost like you slipped into another dimension where things were lush and green, and things may have been just a little bit off from where they are in our dimension. But yeah, it makes me think of
Yeah.
defrag.
or something was messing with your mind and replaced that drive with a similar drive, not paying attention to whether it matched or not.
Ew.
What happened? Have you seen that video floating around with this girl trying to get the aliens to probe her? Yeah,
Ew. No.
So the aliens trying to probe you and just erase your mind.
I hope not. Let's not think about that. I don't want to think about that.
Oh no.
Yeah, but I definitely had, yeah, Stacy, a glitch in the matrix.
For sure. It's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of people who think we're living in a simulation, and
Yeah.
means that could be construed as evidence.
So maybe somebody
Yeah.
was defragging the computer at the time.
It would
turn
have to
things
be a
off for
quantum
minute.
computer, but yeah, I mean, it's just a little
I
blip
guess you
of
wouldn't have to
time that
defrag that, would you?
replaced, replayed.
Fascinating,
I
though.
always, yeah, I always assumed that, like, so I've always kind of felt like it was like the universe like poking back at me. So prior to this, we had been discussing things like glitches in the matrix and stuff a lot, and I had made note to them that I'd never had anything like that happen except for like
You
driving and
challenged
kind
the
of zoning
universe.
out.
That's what
You
happened.
you kind of zone out when you're driving on a road you've been on a million times, and then you can't remember how you got home. I was like, besides that, I've never really had anything happen to me. And then just like a month later is when this happened. And sometimes I wonder if I'm accidentally challenging the universe to like
Yes,
prove me
yeah,
wrong.
that's exactly
or,
what you did. Was let's have some fun
Yeah.
with Jess.
It
Because
goes along the lines
Oh.
of the saying, "You look into the abyss, and the abyss looks back," kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it's
Well,
taking
I had
notice
said
of
at the
now.
time, like,
Oh.
I'd never experienced anything like that without Pam.
Pooped your snoot. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
that's
I kept
true.
saying.
That's true. Yeah.
It's all on Pam. It's Pam's fault that this stuff happens to
Yeah,
us.
that's
It's
whenever
Pam that does it.
every time I've
And
had
then-
a time episode, it's
yeah.
been with Pam.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not sure I like that. No, I know I don't like that, actually. There's no not sure about it.
Burlap.
Or a lot. So, all right. So I say we table the rest of this until the next one because it's already 8:40.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we will do a third section of time anomalies, time slips, slips into glitches in the matrix. Because why not?
There's some good ones out there.
There is so
Yeah.
much information out there, and there's so many people that we know who've had weird little things like that happen.
Mm-hmm.
We should have Christy Campbell on. She's got some amazing ones that happened to her.
Totally.
She has some really
That's a
good
great
stories.
idea.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's a great idea. In fact, when we get done tonight, I may get a hold of her and see if she wants to.
That would be awesome. I
Join
love
us
having
next time.
Christy on.
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds good.
Where's all my crap at? Ah, there it is. I was trying to get all my notebooks together. All right. Are we ready for the notebook game?
We are. Is
I'm
everybody in
ready.
the chat ready for the notebook game? If you are, so what Jess does, she's got 5 notebooks. And so when you go to pick one, pick a notebook 1 through 5, and then choose pages from number 65 and lower.
Yeah. You can actually go 75. I have at least 75
yeah.
pages in all these.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Okay, so
so
75 and lower. And Stacy is up. Cord says notebook number 2, page 63.
all right,
Hi,
sir.
Cord.
Let me pull that up. And you
I
guys
saw
chit chat a
Mr.
little bit while I
Cord
pull that up.
yesterday. He has a really spiffy new hairdo for school. School's
Oh,
getting ready to start
nice.
in our area.
Ooh,
So, yeah, he looks pretty fabulous.
I keep offering to cut
Cool.
people's hair and make it look just like mine, but they keep saying no.
He looks very handsome.
I'm sure he does.
He does. And Shane showed
Okay.
off his hairdo too, by the way, Stacy. He looks fabulous as well.
So this page is about the Vikings they found in Kentucky.
Nice.
Nice.
All right. And Cord, if you're listening, Vikings weren't supposed to ever have been in Kentucky. So this
Ever.
is a weird historic anomaly. So I'm just going to read what the page says. So Vikings in Kentucky. In 1932, near Louisville, Kentucky, a mound was excavated and found to contain the remains of several Indians and one Viking warrior, complete with blonde hair, beard, metal shield, spear, sword, knife, and helmet. The site was later bulldozed by local authorities, and no one ever knows what happened to all those bits and pieces. They were photographed, I believe. They also found, and this is in a different spot, 3 rune stones nearby this spot, and they deciphered them. It said a contingent of warriors became shipwrecked on the coast and made their way westward, dying one by one from sickness and hostile Indian attacks until they came to the Ohio River. Apparently, they believe the last man of this group that this discussed had befriended the local Indians and then was buried in this mound. So they think this is who this gentleman was, who they found buried with the Indians, was the last one of this group that came in. Kind of interesting. And down below that, we have Romans in Kentucky. In the mid 1800s, 2 spelunkers were exploring a cave in Muttenberg County and discovered the remains of 4 mummified people dressed as Romans. They also found the corpse of a monkey. All of the bodies were petrified. So apparently they had a pet monkey.
Interesting.
You're making me want to get started again on the inconvenient history.
Oh,
yeah,
I know.
We should.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Have you noticed a recurring theme or, shall I say synchronicity on the notebook game? We keep popping up with things like this.
Yes.
That's true. And the last thing on the page, it talks about glass artifacts. In the late 1800s in Henderson County, Kentucky, mounds were excavated and were found to contain artifacts from a pre-Indian culture. The artifacts looked very un-Indian, most of them being made of glass, something that they didn't have the capability or the knowledge to make at that point, or so we thought.
Glass is fairly difficult to make.
Mm-hmm.
It usually happens after you start with basic metallurgy. It's usually something you don't find until at least the Bronze Age.
Or lightning and sand.
Yep.
Cord was just talking earlier tonight about how he wants a pretty monkey. So yay! Oh, sorry, a pet monkey.
He has one. Isn't his name Dad?
Ooh.
All right. Does anybody else want to play? Ken, somebody?
Yeah, somebody jump in with the page number. Notebook 1 through 5 and page 75 or less. I want to do one. Can I do one?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Let's see. Notebook 4, page 44.
Okay.
Oh,
okay. So Pam's getting the folder tonight.
Ooh.
So I threw a folder in there. Yeah, so like I I mentioned this last time I brought a folder, but we didn't hit it at that time. I have been slowly going through all my loose research. I have all this like just loose research that was printed, or I just, it got onto a piece of paper and I never got it put back. And I've just been throwing it into folders lately until I can get through them and get them organized. So this folder right here holds a cornucopia of I don't know what. So we're just gonna find out.
Woohoo!
So which page did you pick?
Page 44.
Okay. Give me just a second. Chit chat about something while I scrounge down through this.
Yeah, I think we should start researching again and start on the inconvenient artifacts and history stuff.
Good.
Absolutely.
That was one of my favorite series we did on the Fringe.
Mine too. I want to pull up the Annals of Kentucky and just tear it apart and go through it.
I think that's maybe we should do that after the Paracon. Maybe we should print out the Annals of Kentucky and sit down, all of us together, and just pick it apart and do assign research.
Yeah, that'd
all right.
really...
I got it.
Yay!
It's something kind of similar, so it's on the Kennewick Man.
No, nice.
Yeah. So okay. The Kennewick Man, the remains of one of the oldest North Americans ever to have been recovered in Washington state. The 9,300-year-old skeleton is 90% complete and belongs to a Caucasian male about 5 foot 10 inches tall, described as one of the most complete skeletons ever unearthed in the Americas. It was discovered near Kennewick, Washington in July of 1996 and dubbed the Kennewick Man. Nice. And there is all sorts of controversy around this thing. Exactly how old it is, exactly, what he was doing. It's really interesting. We don't have time to go into all of that here, but if you're interested in it right now, go look it up because there's tons of stuff on it. I always say this. If you were going to look up anything related to this kind of stuff, skip the first 3 pages of the internet. Like whatever it pulls up first. Skip to the third or the fourth page, and then you'll start getting into the actual interesting, real work that's been done on it, rather than the Snopes or the Wikipedia crap or the
you'll hit every time.
Yeah.
Okay, before you don't shut your notebook.
Okay.
Because Ken had put up a notebook for page 37, so you're relatively
I just have to go back. Okay. This is about Missouri's buried city.
Oh, perfect. In fact, I think
this is another synchronicity. We've been talking about starting up that research line again, and everything everybody's been getting is related to it.
It is,
yeah. The fates are trying to tell us something. So this is actually they're not my notes. It's the actual news article from 1885 that I've printed off here. And I'm just going to read it because it's really interesting. So it's headlined Missouri's Buried City.
I think I need a copy of that. Yeah.
A strange discovery in a coal mine near Moberly, Missouri. And this came out of a St. Louis paper. April 8th, the city of Moberly, Missouri is stirred up over the discovery of a wonderful buried city, which was discovered at the bottom of a coal shaft 380 feet deep, which was being sunk near the city. A hard and thick stratum of lava. That would be horrible. Of larva. A stratum of lava, arches in the buried city, the streets of which are regularly laid out and enclosed by walls of stone, which is cut and dressed in a fairly good, although rude, style of masonry. A ball 30 by 100 feet was discovered, wherein stone benches and tools of all descriptions for mechanical service. Further search disclosed statues and images made of a composition closely resembling bronze, but lacking luster. A stone fountain was found, actuated in a wide court or street, and from it a stream of perfectly pure water was flowing, which was found to be strongly impregnated with lime. Lying beside the foundation were portions of the skeletons of a human being. The bones of the legs measured the femur 4½ feet, the tibia 4 feet and 3 inches, showing that when alive, the figure was 3 times the size of an ordinary man and possessed of a wonderful muscular power and quickness. The head bones had separated in 2 pieces. And I can't pronounce these words. It's the different parts of the skull. Suturing having been destroyed. The implements found embrace bronze and flint knives, stone and granite hammers, metallic saws of crude workmanship, but proved metal, and others of similar character. They are not so highly polished nor so accurately made as those now finished by our best mechanics, but they show skill and an evidence of an advanced civilization that were very wonderful. The searching party spent 12 hours in the depths and only gave up explorations because of the oil in their lamps being low. No end to the wonders of the discovery were reached. The facts above given are vouched for by Mr. David Coates, the recorder of the city of Moberly, and Mr. George Keating, city marshal, who were of the exploring party. A further extended search will be made in a day or 2. Now, if I remember correctly, we researched this out further.
Yep.
And when they went back to search more, someone else had come in and they had removed some things which they could not see which they were, and they exploded the front of the cave so they could no longer get in.
And then the sheriff or whoever it was redacted everything.
Yeah.
Which, why would he say it to begin with because he was like, yeah, whatever, it wasn't true. Why would he do that? I mean, why would he ruin his career over
because he was told to.
He was coerced. Absolutely, he was.
Yeah.
100%. Okay. Right. Stacy.
Once again, it's inconvenient.
It is.
Stacy wants
Notebook 3, page 50.
Okay.
If this one is also forgotten history or lost history, I'm going to have a cow.
It probably won't be now that we want it to be. But you never know. It may be.
It may be. Hold on, I get it. What is this on? Hold on, let me go back a page. Oh, okay, I got it. These are part of the show that we did, the predictions for 2024.
Oh, okay.
Right? So on this page, and I had to go back because it's kind of in the middle of some stuff. So this is we did a show, I think it was for On the Fringe. Predictions for 2024, things that people were saying were going to come true in 2024. And I wrote down some concerns. So everybody that knows me knows that I follow CERN, because it always seems like when CERN kicks up, things go nutty. Mandela picks up and all sorts of stuff. So on this page, I have CERN, the high luminosity large hadron collider that they are currently building should be set up by 2029. And I made a note of that because in a lot of the apocalypse scenarios we run onto where somebody says, you know, like, I'm from the future, you need to watch out for this date, it's usually 2029. So I thought that was
2029 or 2030.
Yeah, I made note of that. I also made note the fact that the reason why this collider that they're currently building is so scary is because they're increasing the integrated luminosity by a factor of 10. And I know that doesn't make any sense to you guys at home, but what that basically means, so luminosity to the scientists when they're kicking on the hadron, it's a count of how many collisions happen in the accelerator at any given amount of time. And usually, like with the collider that we have now, they only get one every once in a while. Like it's like taking the very tip of 2 ballpoint pens and getting them to hit dead on. That's what has to happen in order to make these particles collide. And it's 1 in a million kind of a situation. It's hard to do. But the luminosity with this new giant collider is going to kick it up by the factor of 10. So instead of 1 in every million, it's going to be, times 10.
100,000. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they're estimating right now, the scientists are estimating with the high luminosity collider that it will produce 15 million Higgs bosons per year, as compared to
That can't be good. That
No.
cannot be good.
No. So that's what I was saying. So the one that they have right now is in between that original one that they kicked on in 2012 and the huge one. So we're sitting in the middle right now. We're producing a lot of Higgs bosons right now. And run 3 started this summer. So they've been running it right now. It's running right now as we speak. And it's running at a luminosity times 3. So 3 more times than it did when they originally kicked it on. So I think that's one of the reasons why everything's going all
Wonky.
wackadoodle.
Could be.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
well.
And then the rest of it, I'm not going to read it to you guys because you guys will be bored. I had notes to myself about the scattering and neutrino detector tests that they're running and just all the flammy. I'm sure it's not interesting to
Wibbly
anybody but
wobbly,
me.
timey-wimey stuff.
Exactly.
Ken said, I wonder if
All
that's
right.
what's giving many of us headaches. It could be.
It very well could be. Well, if we keep slipping lines, I would have a headache.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Do we have anyone else?
We do. Chris with book 1, page 13.
All right. We can do that. Get down through that. Okay, let's see here. What am I talking about here? Oh, okay. Okay, this is on the crop circles.
Okay.
I had to find my
Awesome.
So this touches on the Euclid geometry theorems that they found with Stonehenge. We were talking about measured and predicted eclipses that it showed to, and that it was also musically inclined, which they found out a lot of the crop circles were. So they think that there was something going on between them. And I also have notes here about the weird metal balls or the spheres on the edges of the field, which turns into, and I should probably read part of the next page because that was just kind of ho-hummy notes to myself. The dry lake bed Sri Yantra formation that we had discussed.
Mm-hmm.
So this one happened over Eastern Oregon. It's one of the most famous ones ever done. It was done on a dry lake bed. It's like 20 square miles of flat, dried up lake bed is all this place is. And it's a flyover area for a airplane flight school. So they fly over it all day long. And one day a pilot and his kid he was teaching flew over the dry lake bed. Nothing was weird. And when they flew back over 20 minutes later, there was a full 20-acre formation on top of this dry lake bed, perfectly shaped. And the weird thing about it is that the soil that was on top was so hard, the hard top soil was so hard that you couldn't break it without it just kind of turning into dust. And literally how the formation was made, it was as if someone had come in with a perfectly shaped shovel and just scooped it right out and didn't leave any perforations or little bits on the edges. It was like,
which there would normally be piles if you plow through something.
Push it out of the way.
And if you look at the fact of how quickly they came through.
Mm-hmm. And even more interesting than that. So this area was dry lake bed for a reason. It was basically like a desert. It did not get hardly any rain during the year. There was no vegetation whatsoever because there was no rain. And suddenly, as soon as this formation had kind of, blown out from the winds and everything, they started getting heavy rains in just this one area, this 20-acre area. And it started getting so much rain during the year that it actually grew its own jungle area. And some of the plants that are inside of this 20-acre area are not even native to the US.
That's wild.
That is
Yeah.
pretty
It's
crazy
wild.
stuff right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the shape that it took was the shape of
Which is even crazier.
The sound that
Yeah.
makes.
the
Is
sound that
basically the sound of the universe. Yeah.
one of the
The
more
song of the
interesting ones.
universe. Yeah. Pretty fascinating. Does anybody else want to try? What about you, Mark? You want to throw one in there?
Yeah.
Nah,
You want to do one more?
Well, let's go 245.
Okay. Okay. These are the Norse flat stones that they found, the Norse carvings that they found, the Norse nail and belt buckle they found in 1887 in the mound near Washburn, Wisconsin on Lake Superior, the Viking sword that was found April 20th, 1911, west of Olin, Minnesota, the Norse coins they found, a Norwegian penny circa 1065 to 1080, dug up from a Goddard site in Maine, and 300 Norse mooring stones found in Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and Illinois.
Nice.
All right, that's that is a very
Yes.
obvious synchronicity.
Yeah, that did it. That did it. Especially when it's the one that you pull up.
Yeah,
That
interestingly enough, so if
my
I go back a step, I said the Norse flat stones. So the first part of that is beforehand. And it says, so far, 5 small flat stones have been found across Oklahoma, all with dates. And here are the dates. December 25th, 1015, December 30th, 1022, November 11th, 1017, December 22nd, 1022, and November 24th, 1024. And they claim that the Norse have never been in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
They sure did leave their marker stones behind. Yeah. There you go. Wow, you guys just managed to pick all the
like
my head feels like it's gonna float off my head.
Goodness.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. All right. Well, do you guys have anything else before we head out for the night?
Ken wants to see 1-1.
Oh, one more. 1-1.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ken.
That should be fairly easy. Okay. Oh, well, I mean, we just did this one recently, but I'll do it again. So this is the unique factors in the disappearances according to the Missing 411 and David Paulides. So unique factors. So this is things that always pop up in all of the case file he has on people who go missing with his 411 cases. So it usually happens in rural settings. Dogs come into play and have major roles in a good portion of them. Usually dogs and bloodhounds cannot track scents or they lose scent suddenly. Disabled and impaired children numbers are high. Fever is most likely found with almost all the children's cases. They're often found conscious or semi-conscious. They are always found dry and in good shape, even after heavy rains. Disappearances happen most often between 2 to 5 p.m. Swamps and briar patches are where many children are found. Berry patches play a huge role in almost all cases. Clothing, significant pieces of clothing are found missing or found in lieu of the person or child. They're almost always found in previously searched places. And these disappearances almost always happen in clusters. So it was just notes to myself when we're talking about Missing 411.
Yeah.
kind of like how that goes. All right. So, do you have anything else?
I'm going to add this up while we finish, though, just
Okay.
in case. It's coming up.
Yeah. So there's our Bordertown flyer, and like we talked about that at the beginning. 28th of September. If you are in the area, come and see. It is totally worth it. It's a whole day of just fantastic presentations and panels and debates, and you get to meet everybody, and there's authors and vendors and food, and it's absolutely free, minus the concessions. You'd have to pay a little bit for the concessions, but free to get in, free to chit chat with all of these people. Super fun. Make sure you're there, and we will be doing a show on it coming up here. In fact, if you watch Amok on YouTube next Tuesday, we'll be on there discussing this too. Yeah. So we're gonna have a whole show about it coming up soon. We'll let you know when that's coming up.
Yes.
So anywho, don't everybody leave yet. Stay for just 1 second longer and let me finish this up here. Remember to, of course, like, subscribe, hit the bell, share us, so we can get to more people and put some more content out there. We go live every other Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Our next show will be the 28th, I believe. And it will be part 3 of Missing Time and Added Time, and we could probably go all year with it. We'll try to end it on the next one there. Maybe we can convince Christy Campbell to come on with us, and she can tell some of her stories.
He has some good stories.
Yes,
he does.
Yeah. So show notes and our research and things like that can be found on our webpage, www.bordertownparanormal.com. You can also find a link to the Paracon there if you want a little bit more information, and you can also find that on our Facebook page. Thank you to Mark for coming on with us.
Yay.
Of
like
course.
We had to really twist his hand to get him to come. Yep, that's right. Anywho, thank you guys so much for hanging out in the chats and playing the notebook game with us, and we hope to see you back again. And check out On the Fringe next Monday. I think we're going to be talking about weird boundaries, I think is what it is.
We are, yes.
Possible lost continent, just weird stuff.
Yep. Cool. All right, so be careful and don't slip. Don't end up in some other timeline you're not supposed to be in. And if you do, let us know.
Yeah, we don't want to miss the show.
Yeah, that's right. So keep it weird, keep it strange, and remember, it's all connected. Good night.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.